Hey guys, it's Dr. Nick with Health Launch. Today I want to talk to you about headaches. Headaches are a huge factor for over 50% of the population globally. And so we're going to talk to you today about how, if you're feeling a headache, how do you figure out what type of headache it is, if it's something that you can easily treat on your own, or if you need to seek professional help. So let's dive right into the video. All right, so in talking about headaches, one of the most common forms of headaches are migraines, and most of the people who have migraines probably have already been diagnosed with it. But there are two major types of migraine headaches. One is your classic migraine headache, and that is where you tend to have that aura, or you have visual disturbances or bright lights. People tend to be more sensitive to sound as well, and so that's what's called a classic migraine. On the other side, there's a common migraine, and a common migraine is still a similar type of headache, only you're not experiencing the visual or sound disturbances. Migraine headaches tend to affect people on one side of their head. It typically always occurs on that same side for people. And if going into a dark room or getting into a quiet location is something that helps you cope with the headache, then it's likely that you're dealing with migraines. Probably one of the most common forms of headaches that people experience, especially if they have a job where they sit at a desk all day, is called a tension headache. And to know if you have a tension headache, most of the time they either will start at the back of the head and kind of wrap around, or it will just feel like you've got a really tight band around the head. Most people sitting at their desk all day or looking down at their phone or computer will start to get that slow throb in their head, and it starts to get worse over time. And usually tension headaches tend to go away relatively quickly if you stop the activity that started it, or if you go to sleep and you put your body in a state of rest, that tension tends to go away. And if that headache is gone the next day, it's likely that you were suffering from a tension headache. The next headache I want to talk about is called a cervicalgenic headache. And just like it sounds, a cervicalgenic headache means that it is starting or originating in the cervical spine. Most doctors that see people for headaches that are recurring are because of cervicalgenic headaches. Most of the time that will start as a neck ache, and it tends to radiate up into the head. It can be on one side, it can be on both sides, and even can become what feels like a tension headache. But most of the time cervicalgenic headaches start because of being in an abnormal posture or being in a position for too long that puts stress on our neck. And so nowadays we're seeing people looking down at their phones more often, or if we're reading with bad posture, if you're laying in bed at night with a bunch of pillows propped under the head and you're starting to get a headache that starts to slowly come on, you're likely dealing with a cervicalgenic headache. And most of the time, once you stop those activities and you start moving the neck around, then those headaches tend to go away. The next headache I'm going to talk to you about is one that actually starts from the eyes. A lot of people that suffer from headaches neglect to have their eyes checked before going through a myriad of other tests to figure out what's causing their headache. But usually visual headaches will start in the younger population because when they're at school and they're trying to read the board, they can't focus properly and they don't notice that during the day they're actually squinting their eyes. But using those muscles to try and squint and see something far away, or even up close if you're unable to read it, you'll end up using muscles in the eyes that once they become strained, you tend to develop a headache in the front of the head. And some people will believe that that's a sinus headache or a tension headache, and they do all these other things that help the headache go away, and it doesn't. And what they do is they neglect getting their eyes examined to see if they actually need some corrective lenses. And so if you feel like, man, I've tried everything else, I can't figure out why I'm having these headaches, getting your eyes checked would be a great place to start for those. And then lastly, the last major headache I want to talk about are sinus headaches. And sinus headaches are really common, particularly in different parts of the year. And they tend to be in three major places. One is the frontal sinus, kind of between the eyes. The other is along the cheeks here, and that sinus pressure there can even cause pain into the teeth. And lastly, people will tend to feel pain sometimes behind the ears. And that can also be confused for headaches coming from the neck, but you actually have sinuses right behind the ears. And so if you're feeling pressure there, especially if your headache changes with elevation, like if you're driving over a grade or you're in an airplane and your headache gets worse, you may actually be dealing with a sinus headache. If any of the headaches that I've discussed today are resonating with you, Then below in the description, we have a guide that you can click for a link for natural approaches on how to help with headaches. If you like the content in the video, make sure that you like this video and then also click the button to subscribe, as we're going to be bringing you a lot more valuable content on different health topics.